What's good, YouTube? It's Gilbert Lala Lakers back with another video. This one's going to be a big Lakers preview for the regular season. We have the 2015-2016 NBA regular season on the horizon, and I'm extremely excited. I don't know about you. So, without further ado, let's jump into and cover everything related to the Lakers coming into the season and where exactly I feel they can end up at the end of the season. So, first things first, let's go ahead and cover the transactions, what's changed on the roster from last season. I have a list right here. All right, so the people leaving the Lakers are going to be Carlos Boozer, Ed Davis, Wesley Johnson, Xavier Henry, Jordan Hill, Jeremy Lin, Wayne Ellington, and Ronnie Price. The incoming Laker players are going to be Brandon Bass, Anthony Brown, Roy Hibbert, Larry Nance Jr., D'Angelo Russell, and Lou Williams. So that makes the final roster. Oops, I don't think they mentioned Marcelo Huertas. I got that from the official site. That's very strange. But nonetheless, the official roster is going to be Brandon Bass, Tarek Black, Anthony Brown, Kobe Bryant, Jordan Clarkson, Roy Hibbert, Marcelo Huertas, Brian Kelly, Larry Nance Jr., Julius Randle, D'Angelo Russell, Robert Sacre, Lewis Williams, Meta World Peace, and Nick Young. All right, so the projected starters are expected to be D'Angelo Russell, Jordan Clarkson, Kobe Bryant at the small forward position, Julius Randle, and Roy Hibbert. I do predict that we are going to see some variation coming into that starting lineup. Going back to the additions to the roster, I would say overall we've improved, which is, of course, what we should be doing. We were absolute worst in the West last season, which is despicable for this franchise. And if you look on just a talent to talent basis, I mean, yeah, we lost some consistent, decent guys like Ed Davis, who always brings on the offensive boards, but seems to be weak just everywhere else. Wesley Johnson, who's athletic, can shoot, but doesn't really have the ability, or at least he hasn't proven the ability to take that next step into like a starting role consistently or a six-man role, so anything like that. He's not really defined as a player yet in the NBA, and he's been in what 6, 7 seasons now, maybe less, but not very much less. Xavier Henry, he showed signs of being a very capable bench player. He had an injury; it kind of derailed him, but I do expect him to come back strong. Jordan Hill was kind of the biggest loss for us, I would say. Even though Boozer was probably the most talented, Jordan Hill gave the energy that we love to see. He was a very talented rebounder, and he had some offensive capabilities. I think probably more so than he displayed with us. Um, and I think if he was going to show ever in the league that he can score, last year was a perfect opportunity. So I just don't think he has it mentally. I think physically he would be able to score at an NBA level, and I think he did average a double double. So that's not saying like he's over there averaging 2 points a game, uh, but he got a lot of minutes. A lot of his points were probably off of second chances or just people finding him for the easy buckets. So there's that. Jeremy Lin, I'm sorry, Wayne Ellington, Ronnie Price. Jeremy Lin, I thought was a pretty sure thing to leave the team. It definitely seems like he wants to be in a winning situation, which I can't blame him, or he wants a lot of money, which I can't blame him. So either of those two situations, why he chose Charlotte. I mean they're not exactly a championship contender by any means, but they're a better team than us probably, or at least what most people feel. I'll get to that in a minute. So you look at the guys we brought in. We brought in Brandon Bass, who's shown that he's a veteran presence in the locker room, not only in the locker room like I mentioned off the court, but on the court too. He very verbal, very aggressive, and very consistent as well. And also an Ironman in the league, which is fantastic because we definitely need those right now. Anthony Brown, second round talent. I don't think he's going to have the greatest year, but he kind of fills a hole that we needed with the 3-and-D type player, and I really like his defensive potential. Definitely, definitely. Roy Hibbert, big man in the paint, contract year, a lot of motivation for him. I think he loves being in LA. He seems very up-spirited every time that I see interviews dealing with Roy. and asking him about the team and the franchise and stuff like that. And that's just great to see. You always got to love that. Larry Nance Jr., I think, is going to surprise some people. The Lakers surprised people by drafting him 27th. Not a lot of people knew a lot about him, or at least from what I've seen, and myself included. He sure seems like a hustle guy, someone that's going to step in and make the best of whatever minutes he gets. I don't necessarily see him putting up a great statistical line, but I do think that he will be a contributor for what success the Lakers do have this season. D'Angelo Russell, obviously number 2 overall pick in the draft. We have high expectations for this young man. The word star being written all over him as for his projected potential, which I went over in a video if you want to check it out. Wink, wink. Is he really there yet? It doesn't appear so. He's sort of struggled a bit in Summer League. I would say some of that carried over to the preseason play, although I think he did look a bit more composed, still seeking his jump shot, which we know is there, although he hasn't really proven it percentage-wise. I think that will improve as the season goes on. And then, of course, Lou Williams, who's a former 6th Man of the Year winner. He can definitely contribute a lot in limited minutes, but I think he's going to get extended play this season because we are going to need his scoring and his ability to play both guard positions. All right, so let's go ahead and move into the strengths of this team. Now, you may think, what strengths are there? This is one of the worst teams in the West. I don't agree with that, and I know I'm biased. I'm not saying I'm not. I agree that part of me maybe subconsciously is overlooking some factors, but I'm trying to take the most straightforward, step back from the situation and come from it from a non-Laker fan perspective, from just an NBA fan perspective. And that's exactly what I'm doing here. So I legitimately feel that people are overlooking this team, and here's a couple reasons why. So the first is the youth and veteran balance. So a lot of teams, if you'll notice throughout the entire history of the league, that are really youth focused in the starting lineup, for the most part, they don't necessarily perform well, especially going late into the season. The reason I feel is, although they're physically in the best shape compared to some of these veterans that have a lot of miles under their legs, not necessarily older players, but even 28, 29, 30-year-old players that have 6, 7, 8 years under their belt, it starts to add up. 82 games a season, more if you make the playoffs, and if you make the playoffs continually, it just continues to add to that. Factor more into that if there's international play involved, if they're playing for their national team or what have you. So you would think that the younger guys may have an advantage going throughout the course of the season, but the problem is the unexpectedness of it. How much it adds wear to your body, how much it affects you mentally, which I think is very important. You're taking planes, you're taking buses day in, day out for months throughout the year. And when you're in your first year in the league, it's probably the biggest adjustment, obviously. But even years 2 and 3, you're still relatively new to this. So it has been proven through the past that young teams tend to kind of teeter off towards the end of the season. But I really like that we have veteran leaders in the locker room like Kobe Bryant, like Metta World Peace, who made the final roster, like Brandon Bass. These are guys that have been around the league. They played at the highest levels. Obviously Kobe and Metta won championships together. There's no higher level than that. Brandon Bass played for quite a few very good teams, not great, but pretty good teams in the NBA. And I like that we're not just throwing out a whole bunch of 23-year-olds with Kobe and saying, hey, go do your thing, because that's not necessarily the best way to have that youth grow into veteran players that are respected in this league. You need that mixture, and I think we have kind of a perfect balance. Marcelo Huertas, I feel, was a great acquisition this offseason, kind of under the radar. if you saw him in summer league play, the man knows how to play the point guard position. He is extremely, extremely smart with the basketball. A few of his turnovers, and I think what will get to him was were the players, the top level players that kind of know the tricks of the trade, if you would say. Like I know specifically their last or one of their last preseason games, their second to last, I believe, against the Warriors. Steph Curry got his hand in a couple over the back, like over the head type passes. Those are obviously not very easy to read, but Steph Curry knew, probably because he's such a great passer himself, that it was coming. So a lot of the great players that are really well at reading, that are really great at reading players, will probably pick up on his passing ability, his passing angles, and I think that's going to not allow him to be as effective against elite competition, the best of the NBA level. But overall, I feel playing with a bench unit, the pros of Huertas and other veterans like Meta World Peace strongly outweigh the cons. Marcelo specifically is going to be able to revitalize the second unit, get them involved. You got guys like Nick Young and Lou Williams projected to come off the bench. They need the ball in their hands, and if Huertas can get the ball in their hands in a position ready to score, they're going to be more effective and more efficient, which I know has been a big struggle for both of those scorer mentality players that I mentioned throughout their careers. So I like that. Meta World Peace off the bench as well. He's really close to Julius Randle, and I mean the rest of the roster as well, but specifically Julius, and I love it. I see a lot of similarities between the two, and if Julius Randle can have any type of career sort of with him ending as good as Meta World Peace's career went, that would be fantastic. Now, obviously, he's not going to have the defensive ceiling that World Peace had. He has a much higher offensive ceiling than he ever had, though. So just kind of switch that onto the opposite end, and that can turn out really, really well for this team. But more importantly than just the specific Julius Randle coaching or mentoring, however you want to say it, is the intensity. The defensive intensity that he's going to bring to that second unit is going to be vital, especially night in and night out when these guys might be a little bit tired, especially later in the regular season, like I mentioned earlier. He's going to keep these guys motivated, not just because they're getting the ball from Huertas or Russell or Kobe, who I think will take a more passive approach this season, but also because he's going to be diving on the floor. He's going to be jumping out of bounds. They're going to be inspired to play better. And we already have enough motivation as it is. Wearing the purple and gold, you don't want to be having losing seasons. We've had, 4 or 5 in the entire history of the franchise. An amazing statistic. And there's pride that comes with that. And I feel Meta World Peace and Kobe Bryant are going to be instilling that type of tradition. And on some extent, James Worthy with the coaching staff, I know he mentioned it specifically on Time Warner Sportsnet. We have to get these young guys to follow tradition, to be proud to wear the team colors, to wear the Lakers on the front. And I think that's going to have a lot to do with the success of the season, believe it or not. I know it sounds cheesy and cliche, like, oh, be proud and go out there and you'll win. That's not how the game works. But I feel that people strongly overlook the mental aspect of the game and how much of an impact it does have, especially with younger players. All right, talked enough about that. Kobe Bryant, speaking of motivation, Kobe Bryant is entering his 20th NBA season. What I feel is what I personally feel is his last NBA season. With his demeanor, looking at the record, it feels like it's the right time. His contract is expiring, so if he does come back, there's going to be that issue again. Okay, well, how much are the Lakers going to pay him? For how long, until when? So it'll delay our complete rebuild process. And I don't think Kobe's going to want to do that. Eventually, he's going to sit down and realize, although he can play, that's not saying, I'm sure Kobe could probably go till about 44 years old in the league. And I'm not joking with that. He can be an effective NBA player well into his 40s, which is insane. But is Kobe going to be coming off the bench for a team, for a playoff contender, averaging, what, 15 to 20 minutes a game? Averaging 8 points? No, I highly doubt he will ever settle for that type of scenario. It just doesn't fit the character of Kobe Bryant that we've grown to love or hate. So I just feel that this is his last season. And with all the skepticism that the Lakers have been receiving, and more so him specifically, I see everywhere around the internet, on shows and everything, how we are going to be the worst again, how his return, or him still playing, and his inefficiency is going to kind of detour this team from success. That's all motivation. We all know the type of player that Kobe is mentally and, of course, on the court. He's going to take these as challenges. And I tell my friends that and stuff all the time. I have other Laker fans that kind of doubt it. They say, oh, well, he's not even going to be able to make it through a season. Sure, that's a concern. Injuries are always a concern. It's just the way the game is played, especially now it's more fast-paced. I feel that injuries are going to increase in amounts, and unfortunately, the more injuries that happen, the more likely that severe injuries will happen, and especially to older players who their body isn't able to recover as quickly and as efficiently. That's a concern, of course it is. But this is Kobe Bryant we're talking about. Let me see here. I brought up a statistic the other day when I was having a discussion about this, and I want to bring it up again. Let me see here. Sorry, I usually like to have everything ready, but this is a very important statistic, because all I hear from people that are analyzing the Lakers situation and Kobe Bryant specifically is how inefficient he's going to be and how that's going to hurt the team. But when I look at the statistics, okay, so last season he played 35 games before going down with injury to end his season. Prior to that, the 13-14 season, he played 6 games. So his last, what can be considered healthy season, was 2012-2013, which isn't already a good start for my argument, right? Okay, it's been a couple years. He played 78 games in that season. He averaged, this is the last time we saw a completely healthy Kobe Bryant for the course of the season. He averaged 27.3 points per game, 6 assists per game, 5.6 rebounds per game, 1.4 steals per game, shooting 83% from the line, from the free throw line, I'm sorry. 46% from the field, and 32% from downtown. That three-point percentage, not very good, but it is not extremely good, but it is his roughly his career average. So there's that. And he's a career 45% shooter. He shot 46% the last season he was healthy. Those are pretty fucking efficient numbers. I'm sorry, I don't know how you can say otherwise. For a guard that shoots as many shots as he does, is as important as he is to the roster, those are really, really good numbers. Now, yes, the couple injury seasons, we've seen it decline a little bit, actually quite a bit. But what's to say that if healthy, and that's a big if, I understand that, but if healthy, he can't return to the last healthy Kobe Bryant that we've seen. I don't know. I see it. He's slowed down a little bit, but Kobe is such a smart basketball player, such a skilled basketball player, especially with foot movements and like his quickness. He's not necessarily fast, but he's quick. I know we've heard that about several players in the past, and I truly feel that his game will be okay going in as he enters, the latter part of his career. He's not entering anymore, but as he continues his decline, I guess you could say, out of the NBA. So I strongly feel that people are overlooking not just the Lakers as a whole, but Kobe Bryant in specifically. Sorry. This is the guy that single-handedly carried Kwame Brown and Smush Parker to the playoffs and made it a series against the Suns, if I'm not mistaken. It was that season where we lost to Tim Thomas. But sure, he's not as young as he used to be. Sure, he might be a step slower than he used to be, but a step slower does not mean he's going to be a 16-point per game scorer, and his rebounds and his assists are automatically going to drop from 6 and 5 respectively to 2 and 1. That's not the type of player he is. He has the ball in his hands too much to get those type of statistics. He won't allow himself, I feel, to play that bad. I feel he's going to bounce back this season if he can stay healthy and have another fantastic season to kind of go out on a high note. So we'll see if that happens. All right, good management. Moving on to the next strength. Good management is extremely important with the franchise, and I think the Lakers have proven time and time again that behind the scenes we are well equipped to compete in this association. The training staff is usually very, very great. For whatever reason, we've had injuries. That, of course, does happen, as I mentioned, as I alluded to earlier in the video. It's always a concern. Realistically, the odds of us having yet another injury-riddled season for the third straight season is unlikely. Let's just say that. It's not it should not happen again. Let's say it like that. With how many injuries we've sustained, it shouldn't happen again. Will it? We never know. But having the staff behind the scenes that's known these players for so long, although it's a new roster, they've been around a lot of these players night in and night out for many, many years. A lot of the Lakers staff is very experienced. We look at the coaching staff. Byron Scott has proven that he can win in this league. He usually always has a very nice roster to accompany that. I wouldn't say this is for sure up there with his other finalist rosters like the Nets, and although the Hornets never went to the finals, New Orleans back when he was there with Chris Paul and stuff, they were a very damn good team. Obviously, there's a step back with this roster, but he's proven that he knows what it takes to win in this league. And I think that he will finally bring some stability to the coaching part, whether fans like it or not. I do see him as a long-term coaching solution for us. So I look forward to it. I do. I think the coaching carousel that has been our head coach since Phil Jackson left is not healthy for the longevity of the success of this roster, of this franchise, I'm sorry. So having stability on the coaching staff, saying, all right, this is our system. We need to find guys that fit into this system instead of trying to find a coach that's willing to mold their coaching ability around this specific set of 15 guys is going to be important. And I think Byron will come out, have a great coaching season, and maybe take this team to higher than most people feel, to higher section of the standings than most people may feel. All right. Versatility, the final strength I want to talk about. Versatility can open up options. It can open up doors offensively and defensively. If you look at our lineup, the only thing that I would say is we don't really have a lot of, sit in the paint, swat shots, big man, but we do have it. We have Roy Hibbert. He's proven that he's a great shot blocker in this league at times if he's all in there on the court. But everywhere else, we have guys that can play multiple positions. Kobe Bryant can play the 2, 3, and he can even set up the offense if needed. We have Jordan Clarkson, D'Angelo Russell, Lou Williams. Let me see anyone else here. Anthony Brown can play 3. All of those guys are guys that can play both guard positions. Fantastic. That's great. Let's look at our forwards: Ryan Kelly, Larry Nance Jr., Julius Randle. Those are all guys that can play multiple forward positions. So Anthony Brown maybe at times too. He can kind of stretch, and his defense I feel is good enough to play some of the fours, some of the smaller fours in the league. So versatility will open up some avenues for us as a roster. I think that throughout the course of the season, it'll make teams harder to scout us, to prepare for us. It'll make a lot of changes to the roster kind of successful in a way. Instead of just having a set amount of roles and stuff for players, we have guys that, if for example we need more 3-point shooting on the night, maybe Anthony Brown plays the shooting guard instead of the small forward that he's used to playing. Maybe Ryan Kelly plays more at the 4 instead of, say, Brandon Bass or Tariq Black. So we have the versatility to kind of match up ideally to most teams in the league. I would say there's a few teams that probably give us nightmares just with their speed, which I would say is probably our biggest weakness. Like have a team like Golden State and and Portland Trailblazers with Steph Curry, Damian Lillard, lead point guard guys that are able to penetrate into the lane, take advantage of our lack of shot blocking in the post with only having Roy Hibbert. Sacre is not really a shot blocker either as Bass or Tariq Black. So if going against elite level point guards, I think we are going to struggle throughout the course of the season. But once again, that versatility, that veteran leadership, those are all attributes that can kind of hide some of the weaknesses. If we have guys out there motivated, we might have a shot blocker or help defense that appears out of nowhere. Maybe a guy like D'Angelo Russell has a lot of height for his position, or Jordan Clarkson, who has a lot of athleticism for his position, will turn into a stopper at points when we need it for those big plays or against those, big level competition, or however you want to say it. So that's where I see the versatility going. I see it as more of a strength than a weakness. A lot of people argue over, those type of players that are really good at everything but great at nothing. And I kind of see us as that team. Maybe not really good, but we're pretty much good. We can do a little bit of everything, but we're not great in any certain area. I really see it have that analogy cover the team. I think that fits us really well. And I personally like those type of players. So I personally like this type of team. And I think the ceiling is a lot higher than most people are giving it credit for. All right. So, of course, with strengths come weaknesses, and the Lakers have quite a few. Young starters is the first one that I want to talk about. As I mentioned earlier, younger players tend to kind of not die out, but have issues with competing when it matters. And that's nothing against them. Now, of course, individually, you do have to take it case by case. But I will say, as a generality, as a complete blanket statement, that tends to be the case. We have D'Angelo Russell, Jordan Clarkson, Julius Randle. Randle is pretty much entering his rookie season, although he's technically a sophomore in the NBA because he played one game for us last season before sustaining the season-ending injury. So those are two sophomores and one by technicality, and D'Angelo Russell entering the league, and not just entering the league, but starting for this team. that's going to have its nights where it bites us in the ass. There's just no denying that. They're going to have off nights. They haven't really established their game yet. They're still kind of trying to find their final form, if you want to say, what's successful for them, and that's a filling out process. That is something that takes time. So it's kind of foolish, I would feel, to expect otherwise. Um, Obviously you can always hope for it, but the reality is it's extremely rare that young players find their niche or their final skill set very early in their career. It just doesn't happen. So young starters are going to be an issue for us. Hopefully the veteran leadership will be able to, cover that issue moving forward and not have it be a big factor of the season. Injuries. I don't want to talk on this. I don't want to harp on this too much because to me it's an excuse. I've always looked at it that way. You look back on some teams that may have done more if it weren't for injuries, but it's the general manager's job and it's these franchises' job to bring out the best 15 players, and it doesn't just end with the starting lineup. It goes all throughout the roster. It's your job to have capable backups come in and be ready to play. That's part of the team. It's part of the league. It's part of the game. It just happens. So injuries are going to be very important for us once again this season, but mainly for the big guys. Kobe Bryant, if he goes down with another big injury, I do see us being probably the worst team in the West again. He is going to be the definition of an X factor this season. Roy Hibbert, if he goes down with an injury, that is going to be huge as well. Not only physically, but that means Brandon Bass and Robert Sacre, or maybe Tarek Black, probably Tarek Black actually, will be competing for the starting center position. That is not good. Brandon Bass is what, 6'9", I want to say. Tarek Black is still kind of an undersized center himself. That makes us a really small team. And then if you go with Robert Sacre, 7-footer, sure, but not. I'm sorry, I don't feel he's an NBA level talent, and that's nothing against Robert personally. I've met the guy multiple times with fellow Laker fans and stuff. Extremely nice person, but man, it's painful sometimes to see some of the plays that he makes out there. He's definitely not a starting center in this league. I will say that. I think I'm comfortable saying that, and I'm sure he would probably agree with me. But having to decide from Roy Hibbert and Brandon Bass maybe on certain nights as your starting center to go from Brandon Bass being the probable best talented option and Tarek Black or Robert Sacre is going to be huge for this roster. So hopefully Hibbert can stay healthy. Larry Nance Jr., Jordan Clarkson, those are guys that I'm kind of worried about injury-wise, just because of how hard they play, and Julius Randle can be added to that, and how much they're gonna want to prove this season. They might push themselves a little bit too hard and sustain a big injury, and those are all guys that we're going to need everyone. Let's be honest, we're going to need everyone healthy for us to reach our maximum potential this season. And if a couple of those players or even one of them goes out for a serious injury, that's going to hurt really, really bad. So obviously injuries are going to play a factor. Hopefully we can stay healthy. I have confidence that specifically Kobe will not allow himself to go out like that if this is his last season. He's going to make sure he takes the best possible care of his body and try to avoid an injury at all costs. So I do think that we will see a change. We're not going to have 339 games missed from injuries this season, which is a fucking stupid number. But nonetheless, it's not an excuse. If we do sustain injuries, we should still have to fight our way through it and still be a competitive team, like I know they can be. or we can be. All right, scoring-minded guards. So this is an issue that people have been discussing for quite a while, honestly, and that's multiple guys on the wings for us, specifically the shooting guard position, that want to score the ball. There's only one basketball out there. Um, Kobe Bryant, I keep fucking up his name. Lou Williams, Nick Young. Those are the big three that a lot of people say aren't going to mesh very well. I kind of disagree. Kobe, for all the flack he gets for being a ball hog or what have you, is has a career average of, what is it? Assists per game? 4.8 assists per game. That's better than most bench point guards. So I think he is a very capable passer. Not only does he have it skill-wise, but he is not hesitant to pass the ball to his teammates, and that's grown over time, of course. Now, maybe MVP Kobe Bryant back in the Smush Parker, Kwame Brown type era, post Shaq. Sure, maybe he kind of forced a little bit more shots than he needed to. Didn't really trust his teammates as much, which is understandable. But I think this new Kobe Bryant, because his game has changed since then. Go back and watch the tapes. It's definitely changed. Will definitely get his teammates involved. Lou Williams, he's capable of playing the point guard. He has in the past. I believe he came into the league as a point guard as well. He's kind of a scorer that is willing to pass. Same with Kobe Bryant. They're not exactly a pass-first guard. Pretty obvious. But they have the skill set to make the correct play. They're smart enough players where they can make the correct play. Nick Young, I'm not so confident saying that. I've seen him take some horrendous shots in the preseason and going back to last season as well. I don't think it will be as easy as a transition for Young to be effective in the lineup for us as it will be for Lou Williams and Kobe Bryant to be. But I do think that the team is going to be okay having these three score-first mentality guys on the wings, especially when you got pass-first mentality guys at the point guard position. You got D'Angelo Russell, you got Marcelo Huertas, and as I alluded to earlier, Luis Williams will make the pass if you need him to. So yeah, I don't think the ball hogging will be an issue. I think Nick Young might have the biggest problem with it in terms of how he plays. So we'll see how that goes into the season. I do think it can be an issue. I don't think it will be, though. But I did want to talk about it. All right, so weakness, Western Conference. That's a pretty big one. The Western Conference, everyone sits back, and every year we say the same thing. Holy fuck, it is tough to win in this Western Conference. You can look down the roster. I mean, I think Real GM has a poll right now. Which team will win the Western Conference? Warriors, Spurs, Rockets, Thunder, Clippers, Grizzlies. Those are all teams that can not only win the Western Conference, but can win the NBA title. That's how tough it is out there. So that's what, six teams right there that are practically locked into a playoff spot already, which means there's two other spots available for the playoffs. Can the Lakers get to it? I think yes. Okay. Here's why. We have D'Angelo Russell, who, there's a lot of ifs in this scenario. I'm saying this is the ceiling for us, is the 7th or 8th seed. By no means do I think we will get out of the first round. I am not that naive. I'm not saying we're a title contender, which is hilarious. Can we make the playoffs, though? Yes, I think this team can. I've alluded to, people are overlooking Kobe Bryant in top form. He is still a superstar, even at his age, as the 20th year in the NBA. He can still bring in, night out, have a 50-point game, and carry this team to wherever it wants to go for that night. Jordan Clarkson still feels that he is kind of downplayed a bit. I would say a lot of people saying the last season was a bit of a fluke because he played for such a bad team, and I do think that's a justified opinion in my opinion. However, everything that I've seen from this guy since the preseason started has been fantastic and has looked great for his projected season. I do think that he is going to come out extremely motivated. He seems to have found a new trick up his sleeve. He's forcing himself to play the mid-range game, but still able to hit that outside jumper. I honestly see a potential big season for Jordan Clarkson offensively. I think that he may be enough on the wing to help with some of these bad matchups for us. And if he can take those type of guys along with D'Angelo Russell on the perimeter, that'll allow more help defense to come over to our inside of weakness that is kind of unavoidable going into the season. So that's important if we want to push for the playoffs. D'Angelo Russell has to have a good passing season. There's no getting around that. He needs to be a pass-first point guard that can still shoot the ball and shoot a good percentage, mind you, and find a lot of these capable scorers that, like I mentioned earlier, Kobe Bryant, Lou Williams, Nick Young. If the Lou Williams and Nick Young with Marcelo Huertas off the bench, that can be a damn good lineup. They can score against most starters in the league, I would say. So coming off the bench, having that little trio on the wing with energy guys like Brandon Bass, Larry Nance Jr., Julius Randle, Tarek Black, even Sacre to an extent, those are guys that are going to get the ball for the team. And Lou Williams, Nick Young are going to score the ball for the team. That can lead to a very nice bench for us. I do think that this is the strongest bench that we've put together for a season in a while, probably since our championship years. Our bench has always been weak, I feel, since then. Oops, sorry about that. Our bench has been weak. I think we've solved a lot of the issues this season, and I do feel that the Lakers can do well. Now notice I have been saying can. Where do I personally feel that they'll end? I feel this team is going to be about a 36 to 40 win team in the West. Miss out on the playoffs, but be a lot closer than most people expected. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. A lot of talking. Sorry about that, but nonetheless, there was a lot to talk about going into the season. At the end of the day, it's going to be an entertaining year for the Lakers. I cannot wait to see what we can do out there. The game is tonight, playing against the Timberwolves. Should be a fantastic game as we see Russell play against Karl Anthony Towns, number 1 versus number 2 pick in the draft. But also, I think this will be a good test for this Lakers squad. Minnesota is an up-and-coming team in the West. They're probably going to be around the same level that we can be at as well if we play well. So I'm extremely interested for not only this game, but the rest, all 81 other of them, all 81 other games as well. And I hope you Laker fans stay confident because I know that the team is going to be coming into this year, and I'm extremely excited for this NBA season. So that's gonna do it. This has been Lala Lakers preseason evaluation, kind of predictions for the 2015-2016 NBA season for the Los Angeles Lakers. I hope you enjoyed. Remember to like the video, leave a comment down below, and of course, I'll talk to you guys later.